Wonder if everyone could take their seats, please. We're going to start within seconds. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Bloomington City Council to order. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Mathey.
Here.
Alderman Sage.
Here.
Alderman Malumwe.
Here.
Alderman Burgess.
Here.
Alderman Painter.
Here.
Alderman Schmidt.
Here.
Alderman Black.
Here.
Alderman Hallman.
Here.
Alderman Bray.
Here.
Mayor Renner.
Here. Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and start with appointments and recognitions. And first we have an EMS Gold Mission Lifeline Award by Art Miller from the American Heart Association to the Bloomington Fire Department. And actually, Madam Clerk, do I have the addendum to that? Or is it? Oh, okay. I apologize.
Good to go?
Yeah, come on up.
All right,
Thank
no
you
problem.
for being more efficient than me.
No.
For this item.
Yeah, that's on for this. Where's the proclamation?
The proclamation he has the award.
He has it already. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, that's bad, Mayor. I didn't realize you already had the award. Okay. Thank you very much, and we just want to thank you so much for all you're doing. And if you could read the award for us, please.
Sure, be happy to. So I would like to say this is the fourth year that the program has been in existence and the fourth year that the Bloomington Fire Department has received an award, one of only 20 in the state this year. So great credit to them. Corey Matheny has been working closely, putting all the data together, and the chief's been making sure he did that. And, and as a result of it, so I am presenting the 2017 Mission Lifeline EMS Recognition Gold Award. So it's the highest level that they can receive from the data that was submitted. All this is about the care that they provide for heart attack patients and a system of care. And then also with us tonight here, we have Bev Glendon and Mike Mueller from Broman, Advocate Broman. A great partner for myself and Mission Lifeline from the Heart Association, and a great partner with these guys from the Bloomington Fire Department. So congratulations to all you citizens for the great work that your guys are doing here, and I know they're going to continue year after year after year. So look forward to making another award presentation.
Thank you so much.
All
Chief,
right.
would
Thank
you
you.
like to say a few words? Chief?
I'd just like to say a few words, please. First and foremost, thanks to all the guys that are in the field that come in contact with our citizens on a daily basis and make good decisions about patient care. I saw Dylan Ferguson, EMS Director for McLean County. Again, we have a great working relationship with him and all the things that he does to coordinate with the two hospitals. And of course, we want to mention both St. Joe and Advocate Broman as well. So thank you very much. And then also everything that you do to supply us with the necessary resources, personnel, equipment, all that is so important to being able to get these patients to the hospital in a timely manner to be able to receive this type of award again. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Chief. And we have further appointments and recognitions. If you're here, would you please stand up? Appointment of Katina Harris to the Human Relations Commission. Katina, are you here? There you go, Katina. Thank you. Thank you for willingness to. Appointment of Victoria Harris to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Victoria, are you here? I don't see Victoria, but thank you for willing to serve. And I'm going to mention the following three. They are actually all Scott Commission care appointments, and I do want to say a couple of words about that. It was only about 11, 12 days ago that I found out that I actually had the authority and responsibility to make appointments to the Scott Commission. In my 4 years and 3 months as mayor, I have never appointed anyone to the Health Scott Commission. And I had a meeting with Jeff Juergens, who made that clear. There are 11 members, and there are 2 vacancies, and 1 member is no longer eligible to serve because of the trust's term limits. So these are 3 people who have agreed to serve in actually fairly specified positions. The first, if you would, all 3 of you would stand. Michael O'Donnell. Is Michael O'Donnell here? He's not here. Dr. Drew Klein, I believe he said he wasn't going to be able to join us. And then Lori Blankenship. Lori? Okay, all 3 were unable to make it. Okay, at this point, we're going to go ahead and move to public comment. And we have, since we have quite a few, we're starting the time clock now at 7:06, so we have up to half an hour. Please be as expeditious as possible so we can get through as many. You have up to 3 minutes. Emily Vigneri from the League of Women Voters, Julie Prandy, and Samantha Case. And so we start with Emily.
Good evening. Emily Vigneri speaking on behalf of the League of Women Voters of McLean County. The League of Women Voters of McLean County supports the establishment of a civilian review board. We are guided by the League of Women Voters United States position on citizen rights, which consists of 4 tenets. The first of which is citizens' right to know/citizen participation, which states the League believes we must protect the citizens' right to know and facilitate citizen participation in government decision-making. The proposed Civilian Review Board will facilitate ongoing dialogue between community members and the Bloomington Police Department. This dialogue is necessary to ensure both constituencies, the citizens of Bloomington and police department officials, gain a deeper understanding of how policing policies and practices impact members of the community, with the goal of this dialogue being a shared commitment to improving relationships between community members and the police, and where warranted, improving police department policies and procedures. Therefore, we urge your approval of the proposed Civilian Review Board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, Julie Prandy, Samantha Case, and Gabe Kripe, C-R-I-P-E, I believe. So, Julie?
I speak today as a citizen who's concerned about police-community relations in our city, and one of many who have been working to bring this issue to the attention of various local groups. My church, the Unitarian Universalist Church, is the only church in town that has a Black Lives Matter sign outside. And in 2016, with the help of the ACLU, I obtained pedestrian stop data for Bloomington for the first 6 months after the law went into effect. And my report was written about in the Pantograph, and I later did an interview on WJBC. The function of the review board, as was stated in the proposal, was, quote, to anticipate and prevent problems, and to provide recommendations for improving interactions between the police department and the community, unquote. And I think this is a noble and appropriate charge for the review board. It is an established practice in government and business to be reviewed in their policies or performance by outside agencies. Often these outside agencies are not in an adversarial relationship at all. They want to point out the problems and suggest how they can be solved. They view themselves as helpers, not hinderers. We know that if a business needs an audit, it must go to an outside agency to check its books, and that public agencies benefit from and are often required to obtain such evaluations. And universities must be accredited by people who are not their employees. And after my pedestrian stop analysis, and after the report of the ISU Professor Frank's class this past spring, which looked at vehicular stops among other issues, we can no longer pretend that racial profiling is just a question of perception. It is not perception, it is reality. And justice demands that people are targeted by the police for what they do, not for the color of their skin, and not for the neighborhood that they happen to be walking in. The Citizen Review Board is not designed to stoke tensions or set up confrontations between community members and police. What we want is better police-community relations. So many people from Bloomington have outlined before you the need for fairer policing communities for fairer policing policies in our community, and I am pleading with you all to hear their concerns. Alone the fact that so many respected agencies in town that you've all heard from support the review board, and so many citizens have been coming to these council meetings to support it, should at least help to sway the council to vote in favor of it. So Chief Hefner himself has noted how few people submit formal complaints to him about how they are treated by the police. The department obviously needs more feedback, and I think that the Citizens Review Board that we're proposing here can give feedback that will be a help to the police department and to our whole community. So please vote yes on the Public Safety Community Relations Board. Thank you.
Samantha Case, Gabe Kripe, and Abby Warfel. Good evening, Samantha.
Good day. I was born and raised in the Bloomington Normal area by an amazing clinical social worker mother and a father who devoted his life to DCFS. Our social work agency network in this community has always impressed me by continually growing and working together to result in less citizens falling through the cracks. As a social worker now myself, I can tell you professionally and personally that I have heard many personal stories of mistreatment by the police enforcement in this county in my lifetime. While the majority of police may be genuinely wishing to protect and serve as much as they can in difficult situations, there will always be those that seek power over others, and those that must learn that this misuse of power is unacceptable. Every employer, public or private, has these public trusted positions taken by such individuals wishing to hold this power and control over others for unhealthy reasons. The local law enforcement are one agency in this area that has no external investigation oversight to combat the employment of such stewards whom may have ulterior motives. Now these boards exist across the country, and they have helped numerous communities heal and become stronger when the community supports and sustains them. I would like to thank the board for hearing your community and beginning this great step forward toward a healthier, happier community law enforcement relationship. Please vote yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Gabe Kripe, Abby Warfel, and Mike Matika.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you this evening. My name is Gabe Kripe, and I have lived in or around this community my entire life. I've sat in this room over the last few months and heard testimony from residents about the lack of trust they feel towards members of the police department and the complaint process. This lack of trust has led to the proposed ordinance that could establish a public safety and community relations board. I appreciate the thoughtfulness that each council member has given to this ordinance. At this point, I think it is pretty well established that there is a problem. I think that by now this is something that we can all agree on. So I'm not here to tell you about the problem. I am here to tell you why I believe that the establishment of the PSCRB is the beginning of the answer to that problem. To me, this board is all about transparency and accountability. I have heard opponents of the board say that the complaint process is not broken and that there is no problem. While I disagree, and I know the facts disagree with that, my question to those people would be, if there is no problem and everything is being done the way it is supposed to be, then why not open up that process for transparency? If most complaints are really about a misunderstanding of the law or a miscommunication between an officer and the community member, then why not open up that process for the community to see? I've also heard opponents of this board say that the board and the organizations who support it are anti-police. I have read through this ordinance about a dozen times. It is not anti-police, it is pro-community. The purpose of law enforcement is to serve and protect community members. To say that anyone who calls for transparency and accountability from the people who are sworn to serve and protect them are anti-police is both damaging and disingenuous. The first thing this ordinance tasks the board with in Section 1A is improving police community interactions, Who could be against that? I am in support of the proposed PSCRB because I care about our community and its residents. I want to live in a community where everyone feels safe and included. After talking with other community members and hearing their public comments, I think it is safe to say that not everyone feels that way. After hearing your discussions at previous city council meetings, I am confident that you care about this community as much as I do, and I am confident that you will vote to pass the establishment of the PSCRB. Thank you.
Thank you. Abby Warfel, Mike Matika, and Rachel Iverson.
Hello, my name is Abby, and I have a few life experiences that I can speak about with authority and authenticity. Being a mediocre competitive swimmer, a child of divorce, or a homeschooling mom. So would you be likely to tell me that my homeschooling experience is false or invalid because you've had different experiences as a parent of children in public schools? No, that'd be odd, right? If you did, I'd be confused, maybe even angry. In fact, to me, it would seem pretty ridiculous. See, I live over in Founders Grove, where controversies and concerns run a little more to bike lanes than to police relations. We see police cars roll through occasionally, and my neighbors and I wouldn't hesitate to call the police if there was, say, a break-in. And that's about the extent of it. So where I live, the idea that a civilian review board is needed seems kind of foreign. At first take, it may even seem ridiculous. But that's the point, isn't it? I don't know what it's like to be a different ethnicity, or in a different economic strata, or what it's like to live in West Bloomington. But the good news is I don't have to assume or even guess what those experiences are, because tonight and in so many other forums and meetings, several folks have bravely shared those experiences and stories with us. They've talked about their concerns and frustrations. They've offered a solution, and they've asked others to step alongside of them. All I had to do was set aside my own experiences and listen to them. And I think that's all they're asking from each of you here tonight to vote on the board. Please, listen, and then vote yes.
Mike Matika, Rachel Iverson, and Bill Rao.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just want to come to say thank you, because I know you all have spent a lot of time deliberating, working on this, trying to craft something, and I appreciate your thoughtfulness and the work you put into this. And I also want to commend Chief Hefner and Bloomington Police Department. This is not about Bloomington Police Department. This is a historic trend that this country has to deal with in how we function as a society in a racially tinged society. You've got a first class and a sincere chief who's working hard, who really does try to reach out. So I don't think this is a reflection against him. I think it's an historic issue that you're grappling with, as many other cities across the country grapple with also. And I'll finally, and very quickly here, remember about 15 years ago when we sat in these seats and debated MAP, the Minority and Police Partnership, which the police chief at the time period did not like. But MAP proved to be a very useful tool for communication. And oftentimes things can be controversial, but they can be productive if we open the door. And the main thing to me with this proposed ordinance is communication. It's another way to hear citizens. It's another way for citizens to hear from their police department and hopefully listen and learn together. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Iverson, Bill Rao, and Stephen Brown.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I would like to talk about a different matter, namely your move to consider a new professional service consultant for municipal aggregation. I would laud you in that effort and strongly support it because of the problems with our last contract. However, I would wish that you would extend discretionary authority to your administrators to do two other things as well. First, to insist that any new professional service consultant include in the bidding pool for municipal aggregation as many wind power merchants as possible. No more contracts where there are only two bidders who happen to be the highest price power producers in the state. Secondly, I would also like them to explore the possibility of directly negotiating a wind power contract with one of the three municipal aggregation certified wind merchants in the state. I don't know whether that's possible. but it's worth pursuing for a number of reasons. Let me give 3 reasons for this. The University of Illinois just signed a power purchase agreement with a rail splitter wind farm for less than 4 cents a kilowatt hour. In my estimation, that's confidential. The actual price, in my estimation, is probably closer to 3 cents a kilowatt hour. 2, the Unitarian Church signed a power agreement directly negotiated with Mid-American from Iowa, a large wind farm operator, for 4.27 cents a kilowatt hour. Under municipal aggregation, people in the 30 cities in Bloomington's aggregation pool are paying 5.7 cents a kilowatt hour, 33% more than a medium-sized church, one medium-sized church in this town. A third reason why I would like them to, your administrators to explore the second option I suggested is that it's good to have a professional service consultant, but negotiating an energy contract is not rocket science. If a church can do it, so can a city. And we're talking about a service fee of $50,000, how much is it, $150,000, $200,000, somewhere in that for that contract? It would be better to spend that money on energy efficiency initiatives for city buildings and operations. So these are some of the things I would hope that you would explore in pursuing a new contract. And finally, by the way, as a staff aide for Southern Christian Leadership Conference, Martin Luther King's organization, I am 101% behind a citizen review board. I have seen police splitting skulls open with batons. So I know the need to have citizen overview of the police. Thank you very much.
We had a little confusion there. Rachel Iverson, Stephen Brown, and Jeff Albee.
Hello, my name is Rachel, and I live in the Dimmitz Road neighborhood just a few blocks from here. I'm here today because I care about my neighbors, and I believe the PSCRB is necessary in Bloomington. Growing up in the South in a diverse neighborhood, I learned early on that people are treated differently because of the color of their skin. And as I've traveled across the country and met friends across the country, they've shared with me their stories of being profiled, mistreated, and scared by police. I've also met many people working to change this. When I moved to Bloomington 3 years ago, I have found that it is no different here. I met my neighbor who lost his job because he was late to work too many times, late to work because he was stopped by police, not because he had done anything wrong. He wasn't ticketed, he was just stopped multiple times. I watched a neighbor get pulled over 2 blocks from their house one afternoon. Their car and passengers were searched. For what cause? Nothing was found. They were just going to pick up snacks from a store, and I wonder what recourse they have. I have seen stories online as well, like one just a month ago where a young man felt scared by police on the way to pay his water bill here at City Hall. I've walked around my neighborhood and listened to the fear they feel, the fear my neighbors feel towards police, and their doubt that anyone will listen to or believe their stories of interactions with police. There is a problem in Bloomington. In 2016, black pedestrians were stopped 4 times as often as white pedestrians. 49% of canine searches were conducted on vehicles of black drivers when they only make up 10% of the driving population, and no additional contraband was found statistically in searches than in searches of white drivers' vehicles. Discrepancies like these are also noted in a study by the Stevenson Center. And I think there are many ways to change this. The 21st Century Policing Implementation Guide recommends a number of strategies that have been successful in this country. A Community Oversight Board is one of the recommendations in the guide. A Community Oversight Board is recommended as part of a greater effort towards community policing. What the police do now when they hold events, when they walk the streets, it is part of community policing, but it is not enough. A board can do more to ease tension, to increase transparency, and to make this community better for all of my neighbors. I hope that you will see the creation of the PSCRB as one necessary means to make community policing a core value that is lived out by the police here in Bloomington. Thank you.
Stephen Brown, Jeff Albee, and Carla Bailey Smith. Good evening.
Hi, I'm here to talk on behalf of PVPA Unit 21. This is the first time we've had a voice in this matter. The only thing that really drew my attention was watching some of the speakers at the last meeting. It seems like we're being painted as racist in this town. And for the 11 years that I've worked here with my brothers and sisters, I haven't seen anyone that I work with stop somebody solely on the race that they are. If we stop somebody, in my experiences here, there's other reasons. If they happen to be somebody that's not the same race as that officer, you know, I can see how they would perceive that as they're being singled out because of their race. I totally understand that. Just in my experience, that is not what I'm seeing. I think this Citizens Review Board is presented as being a way to build a better relationship between the police department and the minority community. That's great. I for one, would be 100% for building that relationship. Obviously, that would make our jobs a lot easier. It seems like their agenda seems to have changed from the initial, what they wanted. Recently, it looks like it's going more toward they want to have more ability to help shape the policing in this community by making their own policies or using their information or their insight to develop these policies. I think that you guys appointed a perfect chief to help with this in Chief Effner. I think he's done a phenomenal job with trying to build that trust back. One thing that I want to make sure that everybody understands is one of the big things that this chief's office has done was work on this, the community house on Jefferson Street. It seemed to me like a great idea. Have a place where people can come, interact with the police. What group, but this group is the one that opposed that. They're the ones that said, there's no way, we don't need this house on the west side of Bloomington. Didn't make sense to me. That seems counterproductive to what they're saying they need here. I think the true agenda can just be explained. If you just look, there's an Instagram page of a guy that spoke on behalf of this group at one of the first meetings, Mike Herzog. It says, in his own words, what he's about is making life a little more complicated for law enforcement. You have to ask yourself, as citizens of this town, do you want law enforcement's job to be more complicated or easier? Because if it's easier, you're going to be safer. Thank you.
Thank you. Carla Bailey Smith, Robert Sutherland, and Aaron Lenev. And we may not quite get there, but go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, members of the council. My name is Jeff Albee. I'm short of my time in the military. I'm a lifelong resident of this community, and I live in Ward 4. And I'm also a sergeant with the Bloomington Police Department. I've been there for almost 20 years, and over the years I've made arrests. I've been in countless altercations. I've been in fear for my life. I've been spit on. I've been called racist names, and I've used my duty weapon during a deadly force encounter while on duty. I've been investigated by the police department after a citizen's complaint was filed on me more than once, and I've been involved in citizens' complaints on the other side, investigating officers. I'm telling you all this so that you know I'm qualified to speak to you. At least I hope you think that. But I'm here tonight because I've been privileged to work with the best men and women your city has hired. The people we're getting right now are the best. And I am honored as a supervisor to supervise these kids. Why in the world they choose this profession is beyond me. I'm in my ladder. I'm in the end of my career. These kids just starting out are looking at the next 30, 35 years of people looking at every move they make for 8 hours, 10 hours a day, whatever it is. During the past 8 years, I've watched the officers of my department and officers of this country literally be ripped apart by local and national media. I've watched silently while Ferguson went on. I've sat silently when officers across this country are assassinated while they're on duty. I've watched marches, watched these people defame this profession that I love. I've worked with and trained with hundreds of officers across this country. I have never stopped someone because of their race. I have never been in a car with somebody and had them tell me, hey, let's stop this guy or this gal because of their race. I have not made an arrest because of someone's race, nor have I known anybody. The Bloomington Police Department has a complaint process in place, and it works. Chief Hefner he's streamlined the process to make it easier, and he's surrounded by a team of people that help him make decisions, and these people know what they're doing. I find it ironic that 2 weeks ago there was a chief's meeting and they gave a presentation of how the complaint process works and what happens when a complaint's received, and none of these people that are here saying they want this thing, this review board, none of those agencies were there. And I think it's ridiculous. And I'm just wondering when is enough and is enough. And I appreciate your time. I'm sorry I went over. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Carla Bailey Smith, Robert Sutherland. And that might be it.
Hi. I'm a member of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Bloomington Normal. And I'm here because Unitarian Universalists believe in the worth and dignity of each human being. All people on earth have an equal claim to life, liberty, and justice, and no idea, ideal, or philosophy is superior to a single human life. I'm also here as a mom because I have a number of mom friends who have young black men and young black boys. And I'm here to make sure that they're safe. I'm here to make sure that my 11-year-old son's friend Dawson, when he learns to drive, isn't pulled over just because somebody suspects him of doing something, or that he gets into an altercation over a broken taillight. I'm here to protect those kids. I don't believe that the police are bad. I hear you. I heard the last two people talk. I don't believe that you're bad people. I believe that you wake up every morning and that you want to do a good job and that you want to protect the community. But we need you guys to see that there's another side to it, that people are scared. People are definitely, genuinely scared. And I'm asking you, please, to allow this PCRB to go forward so we can work together, so the community with real fears can work with the police, and maybe we won't be so scared, and maybe the police will understand why people are scared. So please vote yes.
Okay. Robert Sutherland.
My name is Robert Sutherland. My address is 501 East Willow Street, Normal, Illinois. I've lived in the Bloomington Normal community for 53 years. I currently serve on the steering committee of the Central Illinois chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union, one of the organizations advocating the creation of a civilian review board for the city of Bloomington. I'm also a civilian member of the McLean County Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, representing the League of Women Voters, and I am currently secretary of the McLean County Jail Review Committee, a freestanding citizens group founded in 1980 that has had a productive and harmonious relationship with the jail's administration and staff during the terms of 4 sheriffs, Steve Breenan, Dave Owens, Mike Emery, and John Sandage. For 37 years, the McLean County Jail Review Committee has provided citizen oversight of conditions within the jail, conducted periodic surveys of inmate and staff attitudes and perceptions on internal matters, and made recommendations for the betterment of inmate life. The Jail Review Committee is probably McLean County's
closest structural analogy to the proposed Civilian Review Board. A number of cities such as Urbana, Peoria, Rockford, and Lincoln, Nebraska, I understand, already have civilian review boards that have worked well. The Bloomington City Council has heard a large number of committed voices urging the creation of a civilian review board. I add my voice to those certain that by increasing people's trust and confidence in the efficacy of complaint procedures, and by materially improving relations between the police and the public, such a board will create a positive benefit in the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, public comment is concluded, and at this point, we are going to shift to our consent agenda. Are there items that the council would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Alderwoman Schmidt.
7C, please.
7C, okay.
7G, please.
7, hold on, excuse me. You're right, who? 7G?
Yeah.
Okay. Others? Okay. Is there a motion to then approve the consent agenda as presented with exception of items 7C and 7G?
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Alderwoman Painter. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Black. Okay, if everyone will please vote. Okay, there are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. And we move on to item 7C, Alderwoman Schmidt, and then Alderman Matthey.
Thank you. I would like to table the appointments, the 3 appointments to the John M. Scott Healthcare Commission at this time. The rationale for that being that we're working now, I believe the Scott Commission attorney, Tom Herr, is working on restructuring and changes in our intergovernmental agreement, and I think those are imminent. I think we could very well be looking at a different configuration for the commission. So I'd like to make a motion that we table these until the restructuring agreement has been brought to us.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Alderwoman Hellman. Discussion. Okay. The thing that I would just like to say is that I think you can also make the opposite argument that you've now got a commission that has to have 6 members, and we've only got 8 humans.
We
And
actually,
so-
I did a little bit of research on that because I heard that, and in fact, we have 7 members already. They have not had a problem with a quorum, and the people who've been identified don't actually meet the slots that are in the current bylaws. So I think that there's some considerations there as well that need to be addressed. Okay. So, you know, all taken together.
I'll just go ahead and turn to Mr. Juergens, who's the one who's informed me about all these. My understanding is all 3 of the people meet all 3 of the guidelines under the trust.
Right. There's a little bit conflicting in the trust document itself. It says that the trustee, which is the city council, can appoint additional representatives of other bodies or agencies not to exceed 3 in number, as may be designated by the trustee from time to time. The bylaws may have other requirements or other configurations in there. That's one of the issues that's been an issue, is the conflict between the bylaws and the actual trust agreement. So that's something that will get straightened out as part of this rewrite. Typically, I've been going under primarily the actual trust agreement, but again, that's something we're going to get clarified in these revisions. So,
but the people, the 3 people meet the 3 criteria?
Well,
as you explained to me?
There's, in the actual trust, there's not really criteria. Right now, the members of the commission under the trust agreement are representatives from different entities or agencies. And those agencies each submit names to us, and those individuals get put on the commission. They're kind of a pass-through of this
of this council. The appointments that are my understanding that are up now are appointments of the trustee, and they do not, under the trust agreement, I do not believe they have to be of any specific agency or body. They're just of any specific agency or body. They're just 3 appointments that represent various bodies or agencies. Now, under the bylaws, there could be a different interpretation as to where those individuals have to come from. Now, where they got that in the bylaws, because it's not in the trust agreement, I couldn't answer that. All I know is there seems to be a conflict between the trust agreement and the bylaws.
That's right.
So,
And if there's a conflict between the trust agreement and the bylaws, the trust agreement is what trumps it.
I would argue the trust agreement is what trumps it, yes.
Right, okay. So if there was the specific things that you were mentioning, Alderwoman Schmidt,
I'm sorry?
the specific things that the appointees did not meet?
My understanding from the commission is that they're missing representative from OSF St. Joe, from Mid-Central Community Action, and from United Way. And apparently the doctor who was serving out of the Optometric Society was term limited. But given that they're still meeting their quorum and that we're in the process of restructuring, I don't see what the rush is, I guess. So that's my motion.
Okay. And I would just ask a rhetorical question. I would think that more people making decisions. If we only had 5 council members, I don't think we'd re-change our charter. I think we'd want to have all 9. But that's, anyway. Other questions, comments? Alderman Fitch.
Just a quick question, so that I'm clear. So a yes vote will be to table the appointments, is that correct?
That was my motion.
Okay.
To table it until the
Restructuring.
intergovernmental agreement and restructuring has been settled.
And is that the interpretation of the chair as well?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Okay, if everyone will go ahead and vote. Okay. The motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Okay, we move on to Alderman Mathey, item 7G.
I just need to recuse myself on that one, Mayor.
Okay, if you'd step out, we'll come grab you.
I'll move that we, that consideration of the ordinance suspending portions of section 26D as noted in 7G, we put that to a vote.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Schmidt. Any further discussion? Seeing none, go ahead and vote. Aye or nay? Motion carries 8-0. If you'd let Alderman Mathey back in. Back to among us. Now, under item 8A, consideration of an ordinance approving the Public Safety Community Relations Board. At this point, we had a brief presentation. At this point, I'm guessing it's just review, and then up to about a 20-minute council presentation if necessary. And what I may do is start with a motion after you're finished.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to review very quickly some of the changes that have been made since the last time this was brought forward to the council. The first is you'll notice there have been some changes made to the establishment and purpose provisions in Section 1. These are changes more to emphasize that this board will be on how to improve police and community relations. The language regarding the prohibition of current and former law enforcement remains in this version, as well as the prohibition on anyone convicted of a felon from serving. There were some changes giving the council more input and oversight of this board, including that the council approve the training and education standards, as well as the rules of procedures that the board will utilize, as well as the brochures and posters that will be published by the board. Again, the brochures and poster provisions were revised to clarify and to highlight that they are to demonstrate the resources available to complainants. Some other changes include that if you fail to recuse yourself when you have a conflict of interest, that would be cause for removal. The revised ordinance no longer calls on the board to study and issue reports on community relations. It also provides that no action of the board shall be considered evidence of wrongdoing or vindication, since the board's review is limited to whether the proper investigation process was followed. And this comes from a request in terms of this being able to be used in subsequent civil or criminal proceedings. We just clarify in the ordinance the limitations of the review process. We also provide that instead of periodic meetings with neighborhood groups, there will be quarterly meetings. These changes come from individual discussions with various aldermen as we try to see where a consensus might have built on this language, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Mr. Black, Alderman Black.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Schmidt. And again, just to clarify, you don't necessarily have to clarify, this is a purely advisory board, and of the mayors that I've spoken with, including police officers in, not just in our community, but when I was at U.S. Conference of Mayors, the Miami Beach and Miami police officers who were with us pretty much everywhere. And when there are internal investigations, if they involve physical harm, they have procedures for somebody outside the department to do it. So there's a variety of ways. There aren't that many oversight boards. Let's be clear, this is not an oversight board. It is an advisory board. And also many mayors indicated to me when they set these up that between, depending on the mayor, 25 to 40% of them never, even if people file and they're not happy with the internal process, because the internal process does not change, that they don't even render a decision. Very often, when they go through it, they're able to mediate a situation that is very often misunderstood. Now, I don't know, I can't promise that 25 to 35 or 40% are going to be mediated, but we do know that anecdotally, at least, there are other communities where this has helped. Those are my only comments. Other comments by members of the council? Alderman Howland.
Thank you, Mayor. I've spoken with people throughout the community, those who are supporting the proposed ordinance and those who are not. I've spoken with neighbors, friends, members of the 5 alliance organizations, and sworn officers. I've attended numerous meetings since I first became aware of the interest in a Citizens Review Board, now Community Relations Board, at the Chiefs bi-monthly forum in early November of 2016. I've given this 8 months of thought, inquiry, research, and sleepless nights. I have 7 points. I won't go through all of them, but they in detail. But my concerns are about the purpose, training, composition, confidentiality, and selection. I also have a concern that item previously 8B was removed from an earlier version of the proposal that to me should have been the heart of the board's responsibility. The PSCRB, and what was removed is the PSCRB is empowered to periodically study and issue reports to the corporate authorities about police community relations and other issues which relate to community climate. I want to say that we've heard from numerous people that have come to speak before the council about retaliation. I've heard from citizens that are against this, who are afraid of retaliation if they are publicly against it. I'm also disappointed that, with the exception of Dante Lotson and Mike Matika and Miss Bailey Smith, people that have come up to speak against, or have come up to speak for the proposed PSCRB have said basically negative things about our police. I did not hear, I've heard very few people say, thank you. Thank you for putting your lives on the line every day to protect us. I have the feeling that our police are being profiled, okay? Based on the conversations that I've had in social media, our police officers are being profiled just as members of the Alliance indicate our police are profiling people of color. I'm sorry, but that offends me as a person. That's not why I'm not voting for this, but I just have to say that I won't go any further. I'm just offended by that. So I will not be voting in favor of this, Mayor.
Okay. Anyone else? Alderwoman Schmidt.
And just a couple of, actually I have a question, I think, about, I know that we have other agencies and organizations in this community. Mid-Central Community Action is one, Boys and Girls Club, and their work with youth is another. Wondering how this board might work in conjunction with them and collaboration. I don't want to lose that because I think that they're powerful and positive groups.
Right, and I think that I agree with you, and I wasn't going to say this till afterwards. If there are issues about appointment the very first time, if this passes this evening, again, it's a new board. This is not like the budget review board, review task or downtown revitalization downtown might be extended, but whatever. This is a new board. It is not the case that the council, or really any council in Illinois or any council that I know of, it's hard for councils to appoint other councils. It's one of the reasons why that there tends to be executives who put names forward. But on this, my intention would be to have, assuming it passes, I would have everyone who wants to serve fill in their applications by August 11th and have all the council members look at them and send me your top 3. And I will take the top group unless there's like a tie or some other issue, okay? And that way, the first time around, we're all in it together. We're all looking at all the core criteria in terms of selection. Now, when they come up, the first couple will have 1-year terms and then 2-year terms. I think we'll shift to the normal process, but especially with the new board, that seems to me to be a reasonable compromise.
Well,
so, Bob, to your point, I apologize, and that is, if people were interested in saying, hey, I think there really ought to be somebody from Mid-Central Community Action on this, then that's who you should, could vote for.
Well, I guess it's something a little bit different that I'm talking about. You look at, someone mentioned the Jefferson Street Community House in public comment, and many of their goals and initiatives are very much in alignment with this. So I want to make sure that all those voices get heard.
Absolutely.
So I don't know what that looks like, but I want to be sure I put that out there. That right. I think it's important to all of us that we don't lose sight of the other many good things that are going on.
Right. And I doubt that many of us would disagree.
Right. And the other thing, assuming that this passes this evening, I just want to give a lot of credit to the people who've been. All of us have worked really, really hard on this. And Diana, I know, you're not in favor of this. I really respect the thought that you put into this. I know that you've spent a lot of time and talked to a lot of people about this. We are a council that I'm always proud to say that we work out in the open air and we do a lot of heavy lifting together and people can see us do it. And I'm proud that we do that. And I think it's good that our citizens have that opportunity to watch us reflect what we're hearing. And so I think I just want to give that a shout out.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Black.
Thank you. To Karen's point about how this group would interact with agencies, I think I'm thinking of this in several phases. Phase 1 would be approval this evening. Phase 2 would be who's on the board. And then Phase 3, by ordinance, we have them review our procedures and rules for how they create that. And I would hope that part of what needs to happen there is that they craft in their rules and procedures a mechanism for organizations, non-for-profits, to be able to provide feedback and just institutionally make it crystal clear. That said, I think I have the utmost respect for law enforcement. When I did my police ride-along a couple of years ago, that was a very interesting night, and then they go from one situation to the next, and I'm hopeful that we'll see a lot of positive things come from this group. I'm hopeful that we will see positivity on all sides of these issues. They're very challenging. We're grappling with a lot of things, but my focus right now is to make sure that folks feel that there's an institution that is going to help them be heard. And this is one way of going about it, and I think this document at the end of the day is the result of a lot of people, a lot of organizations working very hard towards a common goal. And Karen is right in that I'm always very proud of how our council does its best to engage with as many people as possible when trying to grapple with these very difficult and challenging issues. So I'm excited just to vote in favor. I would recommend, though, and one of the remarks I've made in the past is that I hope that we make on a calendar 12 months, 18 months from now, that we revisit this whole process and is it working, is it not accomplishing? I tend to find if we actually put it on a calendar that we actually do it and talk about it, make it a committee of the whole, because this is our first try at it. This isn't a new idea, but it's new for Bloomington, and I want to see it be successful and be adaptable and work for our citizens. So I hope we can do that, and we'll go from there.
Just on that, one of the things that will remind us is that every year there'll be new appointees. Right. On this also we have to say to we have an outstanding police force overall, and I certainly have ridden along many times, and just they're such an incredible group of people. It's one of the reasons why I'm very proud of the fact, and I brag about it a lot of places, that we're leading the state in funding police fire pensions, and we've got an award for it. We value our police officers, and I think we all want to improve some relationships. And that's sort of the broader goal. That doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to do it. We might need to tweak it, or who knows. I mean, this is a work in progress. As I said, as I've spoken to, I don't even know how many mayors I spoke to, even just a couple weeks ago at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Some say, oh, no, you really need to do it this way. Some say, you really need to do it this way. Some say, you really need to do it this way. And that's why throughout this whole process, I've said, if it meets a majority of the council and it is a review board, then I will not veto it. I will sign it. I'm not going to try to enter into the weeds of how it looks. And so at this point, unless there's anybody else, if we can go ahead and vote. Okay. The review board passes 8-1. There is only one nay to announce, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk.
Alderman Harmon.
Excuse me. Yeah, thank you. If we could just have silence here so that we can continue our business.
Alderman Harmon.
Or Alderman Howman. Okay. Thank you very much. We do appreciate, and we know that there's a lot of emotion on all sides of this issue, on many sides of this issue, but we do have to move on. Thank you. At this point, we're going to move on to 8B, consideration of an ordinance approving a bond refunding of the 2004 variable rate bonds in the amount of $7,240,000. We have a very brief presentation by our Director of Finance, Patty Lynn Silva.
Good evening. An opportunity to refund our variable rate debt seems timely. There's a lot of information in the memo. I'm not sure how much you would like to get into, but we did an informal direct placement bond where we reached out to 10 of our local banks. 8 asked for proposals and 6 submitted. I did provide this sheet in there, so they were recommending that Commerce Bank, who bid the lowest rates, be awarded with the bid. They also had no covenants, other than that there's a slight change there that most people, this is a tax-exempt placement. If it ever turned taxable, there would be changes in interest rate, but that's a standard covenant. So we would recommend Commerce Bank receive the bid, and I'm not sure if I can answer any questions for you.
Questions of Ms. Silva?
Little.
Seeing none, thank you so much for your diligence on this. Is there a
You're
motion
welcome.
to approve this as presented?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Moved by Alderwoman Schmidt, second by Alderwoman Painter. Any further discussion?
Just a compliment to you. for staying
Absolutely.
ahead of this.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You guys.
If everyone will go ahead and vote, please. Motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. We move right along to...
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Item 8C, consideration of approving agreement with the Stone River for energy brokerage services for an initial 3-year term with the option extending. And I'm turning this over to Mr. Rasmussen, who has a brief presentation, and Mr. Hales, and then we have a brief discussion from the council.
Thank you very much, Mayor and members of City Council. Got it, thanks. Thank you very much. I have just a couple of slides to go over what we have here, and then I also have here Mr. Don Fontone, the president of the Stone River Group, which is here. Don, if you raise your hand, and then we may have some questions for him at the end of this. We also had a few questions late this afternoon from members of the City Council, and so I'll address those questions after I go through this. This year, it seems strange. We were here just 2 years ago when we did it again, and it seems like just yesterday, but it's been 2 years since we did this again. This time we're going with a different group, the Stone River Group, which is a new group that we're using this year. They're not a stranger to us because we also use them for our large municipal aggregations, and also we use, they're being used in Normal, so they're not a stranger to the community here. These energy aggregation, as many of you know, puts all of our services together, and then one broker can negotiate for the best possible rates that we can get, and then that is fixed as opposed to it going up and down and fluctuating with the market. We also will ask that we seek 100% renewable energy. We're required to do 10% by the state, but as the council has asked before, we try to do 100%, and as we begin our negotiation processes, we'll ask Stone River to do that as well. Again, this process here is just to select the person who's going to be our broker. They'll enter into the negotiations as we go along further. There are really two types of aggregation we do. One is for large municipal buildings. That's like the arena and the BCPA. The second is for residential, and that's what we call municipal aggregation. And what we have done before is we had one group doing the municipal aggregation and one group doing the large municipal buildings. This year what we're doing is we're proposing that one broker do it all. That gives us more negotiating ability, and also we're proposing using the same one that Normal uses, so we'll have one community aggregator. The term of this is for 3 years, and there's an option to extend that again for another 3 years. The compensation is 0.0005 cents per kilowatt hour, which is paid by the supplier. And I've got another slide here at the end that I will talk about that because I did have some questions about that. There are several advantages to this, one of which is that we have a number of communities here that are using the same aggregator. If we use a Stone River Group, then we'll be doing the same one as Normal. And in the past, what we've had is we've had some problems because some people will be right across the street from each other and they're getting different rates on their electricity. I've talked with the town of Normal, and they don't anticipate any change in their aggregator either. And also what we'll do is we'll get them on the same cycle. Before, we've been off a year, and so the agreements that were made were for different amounts. So you'd be off with a different aggregator and on a different year. So one of the reasons that we're recommending that we go with the Stone River Group is that puts us on the same timeline and with the same aggregator as Normal. So that our whole community then will be getting the same rates at the same time. Some questions that I wanted to answer that had asked before. One was how much this actually would cost us, and I've got another piece of paper I'm going to pass out on that, because what happens is when we used the group before, we had 0.00075 cents per kilowatt hour. That gets a little bit confusing, but what it really amounted to was we ended up paying them about $114,000 for their services. This year with Stone River, it's 0.0005, which will amount to about $75,000. I have a piece of paper I'll pass out that will show you that amount. The important thing to note about that, though, is it's not paid by the city, nor is it paid by the ratepayers. It is paid by the provider, by the service provider. A second thing that was asked was how much this actually saves, because when you talk about fractions of a cent per kilowatt hour, it becomes a little bit confusing. But based upon what we have used in the past, what it amounted to was about, historically, $300,000 that aggregation saved the city, which ended up being about $37 or so per I think $37 or so per ratepayer. So that's not an awful lot per individual ratepayer, but it is some. I think in years past it's been a greater amount, but as time goes on, it's gotten to be a little bit less. One of the important things, though, is why we're doing it is because a referendum was passed by the city, which requires us to do that. I'd like to pass out a piece of paper here. And late this afternoon, we got these numbers together. And so what happens is right now, Ameren rate is at 5.369 per kilowatt hour, and you'll see that there. But our fixed rate that we got with our current aggregator was for 5.66. Well, so right now it's a little bit less for Ameren. But what I've done is I've shown on the second page here of this document, and it's kind of small print there, but what we've done is we've run through and I've shown you what that is every month since we began aggregation. And the first month that you see is May of 2013, and that shows you what the Ameren rate was, and then it shows you each month. Halfway down that page where you see the X's is where we started our current contract, and there it was fixed with the home field at 5.669 cents per kilowatt hour. So as you look down there, the Ameren rate fluctuates, and sometimes it's been up as high as 6.7, and sometimes it goes down a lower amount. But we have a fixed rate then of 5.669, and so over a period of time, it has saved us considerable money for the city. As I said on the earlier, and what you'll see on this other page that looks like the slide, but I did this just during the last few minutes and didn't have time to put into this presentation. That is paid by the Stone River group by the supplier, not by the city or the ratepayer, and their commission at 0.0005 comes out to be about $75,000. Now, we don't know what all of these numbers might be because we don't know what the amount that the city will use, but this is just based on our historical averages. And so it gives you some idea of how that works. I hope that answers some of the questions that were asked earlier about. Happy to answer any other questions, and Don certainly is the expert on that.
Okay. Further questions? Alderman Matthey?
Well, so my first thought is the rate that's built into the price of, well, of course that's being passed on to the citizens. I mean, that's how you do it. It's a cost of doing business. If you have a cost you're paying to somebody, you build it in. So, you know, even though it may not show up on a consumer's bill as a fee that we're paying, it's built into that price.
It is there somewhere, that's right. We just don't pay it up front.
Is there anything in the contract where, I mean, I guess really the first question is why aren't we doing this ourselves? I mean, why do we have to have a consultant to pay to do this? You know, I think we've got a bunch of really smart people. Is this not something we can just do for ourselves and not pay anybody else to take care of this? And then my second question is okay, if we decide there's a reason why we have to do this, do we have like a minimum number of bids that we can require before this is acceptable to us? Where we're willing to accept, I know there was a bunch of controversy when we signed an agreement with Homefield. I'm not even sure how many years ago that was, that there was only, 2 or 3 bids that we got out of all the suppliers that were available. How did we only end up with, 3 bids out of that whole process? So do we have any guarantees that we're going to get a minimum number of bids to make sure we're looking at the widest gambit of options for everybody here?
You've asked 2 very good questions, and the first question is why we don't do it ourselves. And I would be the first one to say we have an excellent staff who can do a tremendous amount of these kind of things themselves. In this case, I do advocate using a broker to do it because this is so complicated and it moves so quickly, it almost defies human understanding sometimes, particularly when you start talking about 100% renewable energy. And so I think it is very good to get an expert in that area. And it moves very quickly because when these bids start coming in, it's an item in the market that moves on a day-to-day basis, and you have to do it that day. And if all of a sudden the staff here is taking up with something like the issue we've just had here recently, that could be at the same moment when we're trying to negotiate a bid, and you have to do it at that moment. And so having an expert out there watching you for us, like Don Fontone, is really very important, and that's why I would, in this case, really advocate that we have an expert doing it.
If I could just second that, though, because this passed just a few days after I was mayor, when I was a new mayor, and when Mr. Hales was out of town, so it was Barb Adkins and I, and we really had like minutes to decide, or those prices would be gone. And we also had, do we do it for 24 months? Do we do it for 18 months? And so, yeah, it's a nerve-wracking process.
Okay. And then the second question you ask is why we only had 2 and how many we might get. I don't know, and I'm going to ask Don to come up and answer that question for you because I don't know how many people he might get when he goes into the bid process. Don?
Yeah, municipal aggregation as part of this contract is difficult because there's not a lot of companies that want to pursue it, because it's individual residential customers. Those aren't big ticket items, so they're grouping them together. They have to send out letters, and you want to have a company that really has some kind of a background on doing the process. So you can imagine if you have 25,000 letters going out, you want to make sure they're correct. You want to make sure you're going out to the right people. So that part of the process can be very tedious and time sensitive. In terms of, what was the other question? Was it?
Why we don't get more bidders bidding?
Oh, the bidder. There are not that many that want to participate. Up in Chicago, they tried to do a certain bid formula, and it didn't work out well for them. I think they made it very complicated, but it didn't work out. So that company pulled out of the market. There's only about 3 companies that actually do it, and there's 4 or 5 you could have in the bidding process. Me personally, as having done this, those other 2 aren't as experienced at it, and I wouldn't want to choose them as a first time for any community to see how it worked. So there are 3 that are proven, and 3 from a rate structure have proven time and time again to be the lowest in the market. Then we also have a large aggregation ourselves, and so we pull our buying power. And so when we work with those other companies, we have a good handle on where prices are. So that's why there's a limited amount. If we were doing the normal group for the municipality itself, you could have up to 16 different suppliers, and we usually look at the financial structure of those suppliers, make sure they're strong in the market, and maybe only have 7 bids out of that group. But in this, it's so specialized, it just reduces the opportunity But I can tell you, we pulled some sample pricing on a short-term rate. We had a 478, and on a 24-month, it was like a 501 just a few weeks ago, just to see where rates were. And that's way below what the default rate was on the Ameren accounts.
Okay, well, I mean, just as a reference point, for my business, I just signed a 48-month at 4.68. So,
Okay.
you know, I mean, it's, you know, I don't know. I think my small business probably would have been considered one of the ones that was considered in the municipality, but, you know, there's a lot of variability out there, I think, right now. One of the things you just said, though, is you thought that we would get more bidders as the city as opposed to the municipal aggregation. Does that mean that by combining them together, we might actually be damaging ourselves and the savings that we could get because we're going to get fewer bidders?
Not at all. I think on the commercial side of bidding, that's an easier process, more straightforward, a lot more companies that participate in that space. In the municipal space, it's much more defined, it's much more difficult, and you have a tendency for most companies to pull out of that rate structure. They don't want to find out if their rates are good enough a year into on residential. Residential, it's like buying one bean instead of a bag of beans. They're buying one bean at a time, and they're nervous that will their rate structure hold. And so it's just like buying in bulk. Commercial is pretty typical. Municipal is not. And really, municipal aggregation from an opt-out standpoint, anyone can opt out in the community that doesn't want to participate. But with an opt-out structure, you can, you know, give everybody the ability to say yes or no. What you're providing is rate stability. And so by providing a rate for everybody, they have other options as an opt-out, as you're just allowing them as a community to say, here's a fixed rate. If you want to remain with the city, here's what we can do. So.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Okay, we've got several people who want to speak. We are way beyond time. So do I have we can do this by voice vote, I'm assuming. Do we have a motion to extend this by another 10 minutes?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Moved by Alderwoman Schmidt. Is there a second? Second by Alderwoman Howman. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there opposed? Okay, so we've got another 10 minutes on the clock. Okay. Are you finished? Yeah. Alderman Sage.
So again, maybe a follow-up question to what Jamie asked. I'm a little intrigued by how he was able to negotiate a 4.6. 4.68. Yeah, I mean, that's still higher than the represented aggregation that is suggested here by, what, 5 communities, including ours. If we're in fact buying in bulk, I'm a little bit puzzled as to why a single business owner could negotiate a better rate.
Right.
Because he's only buying one bean at a time, right?
Exactly. And in all fairness, you'd have to look at what his contract states. Are the components of that price pass through, so that's the power only price? Or there's just a lot of different components. You'd have to break that out to make sure that that rate structure is fair. I've seen a 4% rate, and it had nothing with it, and there's 5 other components to be included.
Okay.
And rates are down now because the renewable percentage is being phased over to the Ameren side, where it used to be in the power price. That's now being shifted over to delivery. So prices are coming down because of that, and that could be very reflective in the rate, could be changing. But we won't go out for bid yet for a few weeks yet. It could be even lower. We don't know.
Thank you. And just a point of clarification. Is it accurate to say that a kilowatt hour of renewable energy, the cost to produce that, is higher than the cost to produce that same hour with coal or something else that's...
Yes.
Right? So I guess my question is, does in fact a council stated position to strive for 100% renewable, doesn't that impact the price that our residents pay?
It does.
It means they're going to pay more,
right?
Because of that position, as opposed to perhaps letting the full vigor of the free marketplace suggest what the kilowatt hour is they're going to pay, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I made that same point, I think, a few years ago when we were talking about the drive for 100% renewable. Thank you.
Alderwoman Schmidt, and then Black, and then we'll vote.
During public comment, we heard from Dr. Rao talking about renewable energy resources as well, and about a church here in town who'd gone out on their own. I have a specific question about this contract. Do we have the right under this contract to also pursue some of our own renewable energy initiatives? Or are we, this is it, we're either working with this company. So for example, suppose we decided that we wanted to look at the old rail yards and to think about what would that look like if we put solar panels all over that? Are we kept from doing our own, our own inquiries into different kinds of energy by signing this contract?
I think there are three things to your question. One, I don't think Don was here yet because he'd had another engagement when Dr. Rao was speaking. I made a note to make sure I linked Dr. Rao and Don up here later so we could address his issues on it. The second thing is when Stone River comes back with their proposal, we don't have to accept that proposal. There'll be a moment where we can vote to take it or not take it, but it'll have to be done on that date. The only thing that we are locked in, though, is the referendum in 2013 does say that we will aggregate. It does mean that people have the choice to opt out, but as a city, I think we're obligated to aggregate. We do that too. Small slip of the tongue there.
All purpose.
But I would go back to Jeff and I would say I think that that referendum locks us in to at least go out with for an aggregation unless we have another referendum. Jeff, what do you say to that?
I'd have to look at that. I'm not sure if just because we've got the authority we have to, but I'd have to look at that.
If I could just give some background, and I remember the wording was such that yes, the city has the authority to do so, but it can also decline to do so. And some of the discussion was, back then there was a large disparity with the electric companies having much higher rates than they do today. And so there was more incentive and potential cost savings for residential homes and small businesses. But I think the extra competition, the municipal aggregation program has got the electric companies to be more competitive in price. And as I said in an email today, if it really gets to the point where there is more, if it's just as competitive, why would we want to continue with the municipal aggregation? Or if they could get it cheaper. So I think those are things to look at. And before we come back to you with any kind of recommendations on bids, we will, a month or two ahead of time, come back and give you a report on what is it looking like, what are the projections for future costs. And as I know, as I've talked to Don, it is so unpredictable. And part of that is looking at what kind of term we're going to look at, to try and get that stability. And so a lot of those issues will be discussed with the council ahead of time so that you very much are providing the policy guidance for what those parameters would be on any kind of bid acceptance, in the future.
Yeah, I would be reluctant, I think, to sign on to something that would keep us from doing some of our own exploration and using some of the great ideas we have right here in our own community.
Yeah, and I don't think this really has any part to play in restricting that at all.
Unless you're with Corn Belt and then you're stuck. Paying
That's right.
Paying way too much money and
those rates are higher.
Monopoly. Oh man, I couldn't believe it. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to take a moment and reaffirm my commitment to Section B of the RFQ here about the renewable energy. That's something that I think is very important. Alderman Sage's point is well taken that it does sometimes cost more money, but it's something that I think is a principle that I like out of the electric aggregation, and I publicly support that. Although I'm looking here, Pawnee, Village of Pawnee, where is that at?
I was leaned over to Alderwoman Painter and said, "Is that Parks and Rec?"
I was going to say, it's not Indiana.
Okay.
So-
I take it that's a motion?
That is definitely a motion.
Okay, that's a motion, so we will move this right along. Is there a second? Second by Alderwoman Painter, who also heard my snotty, pawnee comment. All right. If you're in favor, vote yes there. Okay. Okay, there is, for some reason, it's not, okay, I'm sorry. I know. I do know now. I've learned to say display vote. Something is not happening, Scott.
Alderman Matthey voted in the negative.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying it wouldn't show. Okay, so, it was on there?
It was on there for a second.
For a second? Okay, so there is only one nay to announce, Madam Clerk. Alderman Matthey. Okay, all right.
Thank you very much.
Now we can move on to our second to last item, and that is our invoice for the annual regional service agreement with the McLean County Regional Planning Commission. And we have some brief remarks by Mr. Damer and a very brief council discussion.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll try to be very brief. In 1962...
Okay. You got 5 minutes and you're out of order.
It is true, though, in 1962, metropolitan planning organizations were formed. The McLean County, Regional Planning Commission is one of the MPOs. Not quite sure when it came into being. They develop a budget every year, $500,000 to $600,000. Our portion of that, most of it is federal money that they operate under. Our portion of that works out this year to be $54,181.47. The cost has been in that range for the last several years. I think maybe 5 years ago when they were working on our comprehensive plan, it was closer to $57,000. However, it's been about that right now. Right now they're working on the Town of Normal comprehensive plan. They're finishing up the housing study, doing a number of things like that. Largely, though, their emphasis is on transportation. Really about 75% or so of their effort every year is on transportation planning and funding. Staff is recommending approval of the amount, $54,181.47. We've budgeted more than that, $57,000. Be happy to try to answer any questions.
Questions to Mr. DeBryer?
Not a question, I'd make a motion.
Love a motion.
Okay, let's make...
Okay. Moved by Alderman Schmidt, second by Alderwoman Howman. Boy, we knew how to make things stand. Okay, if there, okay, as long as there aren't any comments, questions, all right. Okay. It's back on. All right, 9-0, no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Okay. Now we go on. Mr. Karch, thank you for coming on down expeditiously. We have consideration of adopting an ordinance approving jurisdictional transfer agreement for portion of Fox Creek Road between Oakland Avenue and Savannah Drive from Bloomington Township Road District to the City of Bloomington. And we have a 5-minute presentation for you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and City Council, this should be another very brief item. It's actually a fairly benign small item that we're going to leverage to give you a quick update on the Fox Creek Bridge project. In essence, the item that you're really voting on 8E is a jurisdictional transfer. We've spoken with the township and the county. This is a small sliver of property in the right-of-way that was impacted because of the project, the Fox Creek Road project. As we did the project, this is Danbury. Here is, again, the railroad, and over here is the interstate, Bike Road. This is Fox Creek, just to give you some context from the southwest part of the community. We've been working on this project for multiple years. We just wanted to kind of give you a quick update on this project. What we're looking at, you've heard before, we've got we have a signal going at Danbury. We have a cross-section with 2 lanes in each direction, complying with the other aspects of the street. But what we wanted to kind of update you on is our interaction with the Illinois Commerce Commission and Union Pacific. Shocker, but Union Pacific, they've done a contested petition, so that's taken a little bit more time than we would like. We are working through that. We are trying to come to a good resolution. We are still on task on schedule to begin construction in the 2018 season, but we're concerned we think we'll be closer to the end of the construction season when we get going, though we still are anticipating on completing in 2019. 2019. Those are the key issues. We have grade crossing protection funds for this project, which is 60% of the eligible funding for the bridge. That is still good news. All of those things are still on schedule, but it's good to give you an update. Any questions at this point?
Questions of Mr. Karch? Is there a motion to approve? I was looking for...
I'll second that motion then. Thanks.
Okay, well, given the chair's option of controlling who speaks and who doesn't and what happens, I'm going to give the motion to Alderman Sage and second by Alderwoman Painter. Any further discussion? Anyway, at this point, we'll vote. You sound like a certain blogger. 9-0. Thank you very much. Thanks. Jim, we're going to go ahead to city manager's comments.
Thank you, Mayor. One comment or point I just might make. Earlier in the evening, when appointments was considered, the motion was acting on the 3 J.M. Scott Commission appointees, but we still had 2 other appointments, one to the Board of Zoning approval and the Human Relations Commission. In talking with the corporate counsel, the council could still act on those other 2 appointments tonight if you're so inclined.
But I think as I understood Alderwoman Schmidt's motion, she was only pulling those 3.
I tabled those 3, but we didn't approve the other 2.
Right. There was no action taken on the other 2. So, and then... Yeah.
Gotcha. So at this point, are we in order to go back and... Okay.
So I will make a motion that we approve the other 2 appointments to the Human Relations and the Zoning Board.
Is there a second? Second by Alderwoman Howman. Okay, if everyone will go ahead and vote for the last exciting vote of the night. Okay, the motion carries 9-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. And now I will turn to city manager's discussion, although that could have been it.
Well, actually, I'd also like to give some time to our corporate counsel on just a few other comments, issues, I think, so we'll turn to Jeff for a few comments.
Thank you. Just real quick, I did want to give a very brief update on the commission and the status of that came up tonight. I did speak with the attorney for the trust, Tom Herr. He expects to have the documents drafted for us to review by the end of the month. So perhaps in August, we'll be coming back to the council for you to take a look at those revised trust documents. I don't want to give you bad information. I was re-looking at the bylaws and should have caught this earlier. The bylaws actually provide, they set forth for 4 appointments, so it's potentially still a little contradictory there. But they specifically say at the time the bylaws were created, those 4 appointments were from the Nurses Association, the Optometric, Mid-Central, and the United Way. The bylaws go on to say that future appointments are basically at the discretion of the council. So they might not be as in conflict as originally we were kind of thinking or talking about. But again, these are things that we can come back as a council and review, what you want that makeup to be and those types of things as we get into those documents further, probably beginning next month. So happy to answer any questions about that.
Questions? Okay, thank you very much. Anything else, Mr. Thank you. I just want to let everybody know that I'm going to Japan for the Asahikawa 55th anniversary. I'm certainly looking forward to going to Japan. When I saw the itinerary that it takes 2 days to get there, and that it takes essentially the equivalent of 2 days to get back, and that you leave Asahikawa, not Asahikawa, you leave Tokyo 9 hours after we left Asahikawa, and then we fly for 15 hours to O'Hare, and we get there an hour before we left. I will be kind of messed up, more than normal. But no, I've certainly learned arigato, onegaishimasu, and konnichiwa. So I figure, okay, those 3 ought to get me through. And that is, thank you so much. No, I didn't ask for bathroom. Hello, because I'm going to be running the parade route, and so I figured I want to thank everybody and say hello, and also please. So I figured, okay, if I need to know please, or I'm really going to be an ugly American, please, thank you, and hello. I believe it or not, don't worry, I don't even need anybody to handle the open house, much less the next exciting episode. Anyway, so that's it, and I want to thank Alderman Milawambwe for, once in a while you get those epiphanies. A week ago, Friday, we were talking about kind of our deep dive about every couple months. What's going on in the city, what's happening, what do we do, and at one point he said, when we were talking about the police review board, where I had come back from being away at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and the council had said they wanted the police chief to come back, and that we could have voted the same night, and I said, no, okay, that means we need to deflect this, et cetera. So one of the things that Alderman Milawambwe, who had signed the document, said to me, he said, at the time, back in when this was first discussed, almost 9 months ago, 8 to 9 months ago, there was some concern that our police chief did not get a chance to fully explain what was going on. He was confined to yes/no answers. And there was understandably some very severe concerns over that. And so that was the impetus for that. And Maria's not here, but that would have, if I had heard that argument, which would, like, my jaw drop, and I think I used an expletive, sugar, and I wouldn't have made my off-the-cuff comment to Maria that unfortunately appeared on the front page of the pantograph. But thank you very much. And other than that, aldermanic comments. Everybody wants to get out of here. Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Alderwoman Schmidt, second by several people, Alderwoman Howman. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Cheers.